Welcome to the Beginner Photography Podcast. Today, we're packing it all up and starting over in a new location. So let's get into it.
Welcome to the Beginner Photography Podcast, a weekly podcast for those who believe that moments matter most and that a beautiful photo is more than just a sum of its settings. A show for those who want to do more with the gear they have to take better photos today. And now, your host, Raymond Hatfield.
Welcome back to this episode of the podcast. I am your host, Raymond Hatfield. I've been hosting this podcast for close to 5 years now, which I cannot believe. And I have been a wedding photographer here in Indianapolis for the past almost 10 years. Now, I know that many of you, this is why I gave myself a little introduction there. I know that many of you are new here after signing up for the free 5-day Skin Tones Made Simple editing challenge. Which is all new, started yesterday, and it's going to go until the end of the week. So seeing everybody's excitement already has been a lot of fun to see. Like Sarah, who said that she joined the challenge to gain the confidence in her ability to edit skin tones. That's a great reason to sign up. Now, whatever the reason, if you haven't signed up yet, there is still time to join the free 5-day challenge. You can do that today at skintonesmadesimple.com. And even if you're listening to this on Tuesday, the day that it comes out, you've already missed a day. That is okay, because at the end of the challenge, I'm going to have a recap page with all of the different days challenges that I will send to you, but I can only do that if you sign up for the challenge now. So today I interview Dana Arnold, who is a wedding photographer from well, that's the thing. That's what makes this interview interesting, is that she's a Navy wife. So every 18 months, she has to pack up and start over again. Somewhere new, somewhere across the country, somewhere, different side of the world. So she's been shooting for a few years, which I think that many of you are going to relate to her journey as far as how she learned how to use her camera. And as a wedding photographer, many times, you don't even book a wedding until 18 months after, or you don't even shoot the wedding until 18 months after you book it. So premium members today will learn Dana's exact marketing strategy on how she books weddings before she even arrives to her new town to ensure that her calendar is full and that she's not wasting any time. So if you want to learn how Dana accelerates her bookings, you can become a premium member today by clicking the premium membership button at the top of the page at beginnerphotographypodcast.com. Okay, with that, let's go ahead and get on into today's interview with Dana Arnold. Your husband, he's in the Navy, correct?
Yeah.
So 2 years ago, you two were transferred from Hawaii to Virginia, and now again, you're being transferred from Virginia to California, where you are going to have to start all over again with your photography business. Is that what's going on right now?
Yep, you got it right.
So, all while knowing also that in another 18, 24 months, you're going to have to do it all over again. So there's a lot to get into here first, as obviously, but before we get there, how did you get your start in photography in the first place?
I think one of the very first things that really wanted me to take up photography was the fact that I was so sick and tired of working opposite hours of my husband. I went and I got my degree. I originally went to get a degree in child psychology so I could teach children with autism, which I had a heart for a while. But then the hours really started to suck me in. And when I was working, he was home, and it was same vice versa. When he was working, I was home. So getting into photography, it allowed me to realize that time with my husband is precious. He deploys a lot. He's always at sea. And especially when he's in a submarine, he's underwater. So it makes things a little more complicated. And I really just wanted to take up photography so I could just spend more time with him when he was home. I just never realized how much I would fall in love with the aspect of photography, besides spending time with him.
Oh, okay. So did photography come on your radar because you were looking for something new, or was photography already something that you were doing, but now you found a way to just fill this void in your life?
It totally came by accident. I had a little, I think it was a Nikon 3300, and my friend Brianna had a new baby boy, and her vision was like, I really just want a picture of my son naked on a beach in Hawaii because it's something she really wanted to do. And as soon as I did it and I shot the session, and I was like, that was really fun. That was the most fun I've ever had with somebody, and a job better than I've experienced in a long time. And I think after that I was like, I think this is something that I really wanted to pursue more. It just never really clicked at that moment that it was going to turn into something full time.
Right. Okay. So at that point, were you confident with your camera, or was this just something that you had and now you're shooting in auto and then you grew from there? Where were you at when you were taking those baby photos?
I was on auto for everything, kit lens and all. It kind of, it took me a couple of months to realize that I really wanted to get out of auto and I really wanted to take this seriously. And so that's when something kind of clicked, that I needed to take courses and actually learn how to get out of auto and onto manual.
Right. Okay. So how long did that take? How long was the progression for you from that first session when you were still shooting in auto to the point to
Mm-hmm.
where you probably felt pretty comfortable with the camera in your hands?
It's actually a couple of months. I think a couple of weeks after that photo session with my friends, Amy and Jordan came into the picture, and I saw an ad on Facebook about their shooting and editing course, and this was back in 2017. And so I bought the course without even thinking about it, and I binge watched it all week, and I quickly got myself into manual and learning how to use the light, learning how to edit photos. And at that point I started to feel really comfortable with the camera, and that's when it really, really hit me, like, this is something that I want to do.
Were there any sort of like aha moments that you had while learning the technical side of photography?
I think in the aha moment was when I just felt really comfortable and knowing my settings without having to, stop and think and Google and YouTube everything. I just knew exactly what the settings were to be. And during one of the photo sessions I had with a soon-to-be bride, and shooting her session at sunrise and seeing how light and airy and how happy she was with the photos kind of was my moment where I needed to take this full time.
Oh, okay. So how long was that? How long was that after that first baby photo that you had this session with this bride to be and you thought, "Oh, this is going to be an important, pillar in my life."
Like 3 months.
3.
I was full throttle. That was during my husband's first deployment. We don't have any kids, so I was bored out of my mind. Working full time, going to college, and then this photography thing came up. I knew right away while he was on deployment that I was going to do this full time eventually. I just wanted to wait, to talk to him and hear from him first before I made that decision to go full time.
So who was this bride? Was this a friend of yours? Was this a family member or somebody who contacted you about photography?
I posted on a page actually, and I was like, hey, I just want to build my portfolio. I'm looking for very specifics of, at sunrise at this location. And she had just reached out to me, and strangely enough, she actually inquired about her wedding a couple years later, but I wasn't there. I couldn't do it. So I had my friend do it. But
Oh,
yeah,
that's always frustrating right there.
I know, right?
You're like, oh man, a beautiful Hawaii wedding. Yeah, of course, sign me up any day of the week.
Yeah.
So obviously you're at this point now to where, actually, I want to go back to that beach session with this bride right there. I know that one of the things that many new photographers kind of struggle with when first shooting in manual is that they see the meter inside their camera, and that obviously if you have a bright sky behind you, it's going to say that the entire photo is overexposed, right? And then when you take your
Hmm.
photo, your bride is going to be very underexposed. So
Right.
did you ever struggle with any exposure compensation or any manual settings like that?
I did, yeah, at one point when I first started the Amy and Jordan course and like learning the shooting and editing aspects of it all. We actually, the way she teaches us, we don't really focus on the meter. We just focus on what f-stops to start at and then to go from there. So for me personally, I actually like mine a little bit overexposed because my style's light and airy. And so I just ignored the meter, I ignored the camera, and I looked at what was on the screen. And if it was to my liking, that's where it would be. But there were some issues at one point where there was some confusion when it comes to lighting and the meter and like understanding that. But luckily, Amy and Jordan's course taught us how to do it.
So when you say that your style is light and airy, I can tell you just from firsthand experience from talking to a lot of other photographers that finding a style is like the hardest thing in the world
Yeah.
for them, right? And you're very confident
Yeah.
about this. Was that
I
something that
was.
right away you were like, I'm light and airy, or how long did it take for you to find this progression?
It's I laugh because I'm pretty sure at one point I was every single style that there was known to man in the book. I took their courses, but I was like, oh, I love the light and airy, but I really wanted to make mine rustic, or I really wanted to do black and white, or I really wanted to do dark and moody, colorful, vibrant, neon colors. I went through every stage of editing and I hated all of it. And my mind kept going back to light and airy because I realized that my personality is light and it's bubbly and it's warm and it's welcoming. And I wanted to put that into my editing.
Oh, wow. I love that. That's a lot deeper than I think many would go as far as, just, oh, well, this photo looks better than that other photo. And I think in that sense, that's really cool. And that's a great way to be able to kind of talk about that and why you edit to potential clients. Is that something that you have found that clients come to you specifically for?
Yes. So actually where I'm located at in Virginia right now, there are really not a whole lot of considered light and airy photographers. A lot of them are more colorful. Some of them, most of the ones I met are dark and moody. And I find that a lot of those who inquire with me are always like, yeah, your photos are just so light and colorful and vibrant. And I haven't found that yet. And so I kind of stand out a little bit on that term. And I just, I go with it from there.
So, when you're shooting you said that your first shoot was with this, I don't know if it was a newborn or if it was a baby, regardless, whatever it was. And then several
Hmm.
months later, you were shooting this bride on the beach. Uh,
Hmm.
did you know right away that weddings was going to be the thing for you, or did you try out anything else in between?
I knew weddings was definitely going to be my thing. I guess we call it a niche, what we call it nowadays. I did try newborn. I tried family sessions. And as a military spouse, it's not always easy to be a wedding photographer. And when you're in a community with the other military spouses, they want you, for their family photos, for their homecoming photos. So I focus on wedding. It's what I really love to do. And I also do military events because I find that to be very fun and emotional, to document as well.
So right away, you're like, nope, you know what? I'm doing weddings. You said that
Yeah.
that's pretty difficult for military spouses. Why? Why is that? Just because? I'll let you tell me. Why is that hard?
I think, well, from my experience, and this is for anybody who may experience this life too, as a military spouse as well, you're moving a lot, and this is something that we might be able to talk about later. So it's not always easy to communicate with wedding vendors if you're only going to be there for X amount of months.
Ah,
It takes on average, I think, 24 months for you to finally get on a really good standard for weddings and for to be known in the local wedding community. However, for me personally, I'm not anywhere for any longer than 24 months. So it's for me personally, it's a lot easier to shoot families and to shoot military events. But I don't let that stand in my way. So I still work really hard to continue shooting weddings, even though it's not always easy to do.
so when did you think to yourself, you know what? This is probably one of the hardest forms of photography to get into for my lifestyle, but I'm going all in. I am going to make this work.
I think that was actually back 6 months, 6 or 7 months when I booked my first couple of weddings, and I kept getting a lot of inquiries at that point for Hawaii weddings. But I would tell them that, oh, your wedding's next year. I'm not going to be in the state anymore. I'm moving, but I would gladly to come back. And a lot of them would say, well, we don't know for sure if you can come back? Like, what if your flight cancels or something, something unfortunate would happen like that, that would prevent me from flying all the way back for their wedding? And so a lot of them would see that I'm a military spouse, and before even inquiring with me, they would be concerned that I would be gone before their wedding date.
Oh, okay. So obviously, I mean, that's a whole new set of challenges right there. How did you deal with that?
Yeah, I insured them. So luckily with the military, with my husband's job specifically, there's a time frame when I know where I'm not going to be here. I know that his contract is at least X amount of months. And for example, here in Virginia, excuse me, my last day here is actually 2 days before Thanksgiving. And so I knew not to book anything past the first week of November. I insured all of my brides that, and for those who were like cutting it close, I would just say, nope, I got to send you to somebody else just to be safe and sorry. So I ensure them that I know that I will be here for at least an X amount of days, months, weeks, whatever, to be here for the wedding.
Okay, and obviously that is a form of reassurance to them that makes them feel a whole lot better,
Yeah.
because as you know, I mean, with weddings, it's a big decision, right? To be able to choose
Yeah.
a wedding photographer. And I've talked to other
Yeah.
photographers who are, maternity, or they shoot newborns, and that, or no, I'm sorry, they shoot weddings, but like they themselves are pregnant, and that's a big thing, right? Like what's going to happen when the time comes? What are you going to do? So let's talk about kind of the going forward process for you, right? So
Right.
fundamentally, your photography is not going to change, right? Just because of your location. But things like scenery, things like your subjects, those things in your photos will change. So say, let's look forward, right? You're going to move out to California, beginning of December. Let's say somebody, reaches out to you today and says, I want to do a shoot once you get in town. How do you prepare for something like that, for a place, I mean, you've never been before?
So with the pandemic, things have changed. I would usually take the effort and actually go out there for a week. I would explore, I would find locations, I would take a couple of tours. I did that for here in Virginia. When I was in Hawaii, I flew all the way out to Virginia and I spent a long week here. And that's what I would usually do. Now, however, things have changed this time and I wasn't able to do that for California. When I did get a few inquiries about sessions out there already that I had to turn down because I wasn't there yet. But for the weddings I have booked so far, they know that I've never toured the venues. They know that I've never done the beaches. And I'm honest with them about it. I was like, look, I've never been there, but I will be taking a tour when I get in. They are so confident with my work and my consistency and how I handle the light that they're not worried about it.
But I mean, are you worried about it? I would be freaking out about it. I would be nervous. I would be so nervous about this whole thing. How do you convince yourself that you are confident enough in your abilities to be able to deliver to them what it is that they're looking for?
I have to trust myself by just reminding myself that I educated myself enough to be as confident as I am today. Um, Even if I'm shooting sunset here on the beach or sunset there over the beach, as long as I find some shade anywhere, as long as I find a white building, I have to trust myself and what I have learned and what I have experienced to have the confidence to do that. Because if I don't trust myself and I don't show the confidence, the photos are going to turn out crappy. So
Very
I don't
true.
even let my mind, I don't even let my mind get there. I'm just confident of what I learned and what I have experienced in the past 3 years to know that I can handle any weather, any situation. I mean, I shot a wedding in a hurricane in Hawaii. So that to me, if I can handle that, I can handle anything. So.
So my next question for you out of that was going to be, how do you build up that confidence? And from what I'm hearing is a lot of it just simply going through it and just dealing with that experience of shooting a tough situation like a wedding hurricane in Hawaii.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, that was just a normal day and the wind was only like 50 miles an hour. It's no big
Oh, that's
deal.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. I'm a firm believer in taking the hard lessons and taking the hard situations and just going with it, because that's the only way that you're going to be able to learn. Shooting in the fog, shooting in rain, overexposure. I mean, I had a session the day before the volcano erupted in Hawaii. So, and then I had a session the week after. And so you have to learn to adjust to those disasters and learn to go with the weather. And you get better because of it.
Let's switch gears just a little bit and talk about the gear. Now, gear isn't normally something that we talk about too much here on the podcast, but I think that
Mm-hmm.
you're in a little bit of a unique position. One, because you travel a lot, and two,
Yeah.
because just your style of shooting, right? So,
Yeah.
when it comes to traveling with gear and packing things up, what do
Mm-hmm.
you think is something that most people just don't even think about?
I think the thing that people don't really think about is that you have to have travel insurance. I don't know if not all insurance has this, but you have to have travel and insurance on your original like photography insurance. And I think it's complicated because if I'm traveling for a wedding or I'm traveling just because of it and I bring my gear with me and something were to happen internationally, a different country, your insurance might not cover it. So it's something that you have to ask your insurance because it's in a different country.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
A few years ago, my wife and I were fortunate enough to be able to go to Iceland, and it was one of the most
Ooh.
incredible places in the entire world.
Yeah.
But I remember, no, I take that back. I didn't even consider any sort of like gear insurance or anything like that. I was just like, oh, I'm just gonna bring my camera and my lenses, and then we're just gonna go for it. Have you ever
Yeah.
had any sort of situation where you've had your gear in danger or anything like that?
My husband and I are adventure seekers. We've been all over the world. And there was a situation I remember perfectly where I believe it was in Thailand. And I was carrying my camera on my wrist. I didn't have the strap on. And we were visiting an elephant sanctuary. And then I was almost knocked over by an elephant
Oh my gosh.
because I was so busy taking a photo of another one that I didn't realize there was one like 6 inches behind me coming full force. So my husband's like, you better get out of the way. I could only imagine a situation like that where I would have had to do a claim on the insurance company that I got tumbled by an elephant in Thailand and I need a new 70 to 200. Um, so you have to be wary of those situations. I mean, obviously I was stupid enough to not have, the strap around my neck to be more cautious about it. But when you're an adventure seeker like we are and you live in the danger zone, like we went skydiving, you just have to be careful to make the smart decisions about that.
Did you take your 70 to 200 skydiving?
No, she was a little too heavy. Um,
Okay.
I brought it along fully thinking that I was allowed to bring my camera skydiving because I thought how cool would it be to take pictures of the whole island of Hawaii
Oh,
when you're above.
jeez. Yeah.
But they told me no, the nerve. So
Party poopers. How
I
rude.
know, right? Like it was my decision. We ended up just booking a skydiving photographer. That way we could still have those pictures and, you know,
Do you think that you could ever
professional
do
would
that
have it.
job? Do you think you could ever be a skydiving photographer?
I mean, I would totally be cool with it, but I feel like if my mom heard this, she would have a little bit of an anxiety attack. So
I
I'll keep my
remember
feet on the ground.
that's hilarious. A few years ago, I had a couple who wanted to do a skydiving engagement session, and they're like, "We'll pay for you, like, to do it or whatever." And I was like, "Deal, like, absolutely."
Did you do it?
I called several skydiving places around Indianapolis, and every single one of them was like, "No, like we can't have you go up there with something super heavy because I guess if it were to fall and potentially hit somebody, they could be liable for it. I'm not sure, but they all said no. So plus, I mean, as you know, all of them have their own photographers, so maybe that was part of their motivation was to try to encourage the couple to just pay them for the extra photos, but
Yeah.
no, never got to do it. I don't know if I will do it either. It's kind of, well, I don't know. Anyway, let's go ahead and move on and once again switch gears a little bit because I'm
Sure.
gonna go back to you, moving, you picking up and starting over and over again, right? This isn't just once. It's not like you've established yourself here and then you're gonna make a new move and then you're gonna be done forever. This is something that you foresee happening several
Hmm.
times here into the
Hmm.
future. So again, that idea is very daunting to me. So, what is something that you are doing right now ahead of your move to drum up inquiries before you even get to California?
You are listening to the free version of the Beginner Photography Podcast, where each week you learn how world-class photographers see and capture the world around them. If you want to hear the extended interview with their best business tips to learn how to make money with your camera, then become a premium member today by heading over to beginnerphotographypodcast.com and click the premium membership button to join now.
That is extremely impressive, and I'm really glad to hear that, because this is, kind of the topic of the of this episode right here, is that you have a small window of opportunity to be able to book a certain amount of people, because especially, I mean, as you know, with weddings, you book a wedding, their wedding's not for another year. So if you're only in a location for 6 months or for 18 months, that only gives you a 6-month window to be able to shoot weddings, and that right there is very scary. So I have to say, I mean, thank you so much for sharing all of that right there about, I mean, your entire marketing strategy, and how you're booking all of these, weddings months before you ever go to these locations. And I can tell you that I will be reaching out and finding out some more information about doing some of those as well, because I mean, I'd like to book some more weddings. I think we all, would enjoy booking some more weddings. So again,
no, absolutely. Yeah, no, you're welcome. I'm more than happy to share with you, anyone who's listening, who's going through the struggle, especially during the pandemic. Now, I have to be honest, like, I myself am still struggling, because I'm moving my business 3,000 miles away to California, who in that specific area where I'm moving to had all these fires, had a pandemic. I'm still trying to get myself known there. But one thing that I've always have clicked with me is being able to connect with these Facebook ads. And I have to be honest, I'm really trying to stay away from them. I haven't done one in a very long time, but I think that times are changing, and I'm learning my growth, and I'm learning what works through this pandemic as we speak.
I love it. So the theme of the podcast this year is to make do, right? So at the end of every episode, I try to remind people to make do. I want you to make more, do more, and then just make do with what you got, because it's going to be better than you think. So with that being said, how have you had to make do with what you have when preparing to make a big move and totally starting over?
Are you referencing to sources that I have now that are getting me through the pandemic, or are you focusing more on just what I can do at the moment in time?
Well, kind of like, there's always more that we could be doing. There's always a better camera. There's always a better marketing strategy. There's always another social platform. But at some point, we have to make decisions to use what it is that we already have and do with what we got, because, well, that's what we got. So is there anything right now that you're doing to prepare yourself to move? Maybe wishing, I wish I had this one thing and that would make this whole situation easier, but I don't, so I'm just going to make do with what I got.
I wish I had $1 million to get me all the marketing strategies that I possibly can get, but I think
and me both.
Then things that we could do. I have to be honest, I don't think so. And I say that because with what I have right now, in my particular situation, and what it could do for others, is use the social media platforms that you have now to connect with the people that you can. If anything, we are all craving to see people. We're all craving to go out there and meet and go to social groups and just like learn and explore. And I think by using what we have, by using Instagram and just checking in on for me personally, I checked in on vendors out in Monterey, and using that just to let people know that, hey, you're not alone in this, is getting me through this military move, to be honest. Connecting with everybody out there, using Instagram and using the mastermind that I'm in now to teach me that Instagram and SEO and blogging is totally okay to use to help me move in this time of period.
Well, of course, yeah. What's something that you think maybe other photographers who are fixed in their location don't even have to worry about that is something that is at the top of your mind?
I wish I was those people. I envy the people who get to stay in one place and like build connection. If they were in one place at this very particular time and they don't have to worry about moving, the one thing I would recommend that they would do is consider trying new ways to market yourself. If you haven't started Pinterest, do a Google research and see what pinning's like. Learn to just try new things, especially during a time where not a lot of us might even be busy because a lot of cancellations and reschedules. Take the time, take the lessons that you have and try to learn something new, because you might actually end up getting something very unique that'll help your business along the way.
Like what? Do you have an example?
I would still say Pinterest. I know that's really silly to bring up over and over again, but I had a list of things that I wanted to try but was never able to do, and one of them is learning how to pin and learning how to do Pinterest. And another thing to do was learning how to create better Instagram posts. And so I would take courses through Pinning. I believe it's Jenna Kutcher's courses, and doing that and just learning how to pin and how to have a better Instagram. I mean, now more than ever is the time to educate yourself if you're just sitting twiddling your thumbs at home.
I hope nobody is just sitting and twiddling their thumbs at home. That sounds terrible. Yeah.
I hope not.
One thing that I do a lot as a wedding photographer is that I like to meet with my couples before their wedding, right? Or before we even book. I just like to meet face to face, kind of get a feel for who they are, how they interact with each other, and just ensure that I'm going to be able to deliver exactly what it is that they're looking for, and not be able to do that. So with you, before you book a wedding, how are you ensuring that these couples that you're booking is a good fit for you?
We actually have a really good Zoom conversation. We usually meet in Zoom or we meet via FaceTime. But when they inquire me, so I actually did get inquiries for California for next year in 2022, ones that I've been very grateful to book, only a couple of them so far. And each one of them, I ensure them that I'm a real person, that I'm not a robot. And the only way for us to really meet, to really interact and see if we're a good fit, is to have a FaceTime call. And I think now more than ever, whether or not I was in California or whether or not I'm still here in Virginia, I would still ensure the same way, because it's safer, especially out in California, where a lot of my brides who have inquired in family sessions are still skeptical about meeting face to face.
Oh, just because of the pandemic.
Yes, just because of the
course,
pandemic. Like I said, with Monterey, there was a lot going on at the one time here where I started to get noticed out there. And so I would just say, to keep things safe, plus I'm still out here in Virginia, let's just have a quick FaceTime call. Quick being an hour and 45 minutes, because we connect so well. So.
I know. Isn't that's always the funniest. I tell my wife, like, hey, I got a meeting with my couple tonight. It'll probably only be 30 minutes or so. And here in my office, an hour and a half later, she's looking at me like, dinner's ready. Like, what's going on? I'm like, oh, okay, sorry about that. No, I totally get that. When it comes to that whole side of things, right, and meeting with your couples, are you telling them beforehand, like, hey, look, I don't live in California right now. Like, I know that you hired California, like a Monterey wedding photographer, but I'm not in California, before the conversation, or do you make that reveal during the phone call itself?
So it's actually on my website. It has mentioned that I'm a military spouse and I'm moving. And then when they inquire within my email, and as soon as I would send them an email back saying, hey, I'm still here in Virginia, but we're we're in the middle of packing up and heading out there. So I would love to take the time to go ahead and chat over FaceTime, yada, yada, my whole spiel thing. They know in advance in the email, the very first thing I say is that I'm still out here in Virginia, but we are in the midst of packing up and moving out to California. It ensures them that I'm still going to be there. The military can be sucky sometimes and totally change their minds on a whim. But I ensure them an email so they know that not only I will be there, but when we schedule our FaceTime meeting, we work on the time zone as well.
What are you going to do when you get out there? What's going to be the first thing that you do?
I am going to I have 3 venues scheduled like 3 venue tours scheduled literally like the day after I get in.
Oh, wow. And what is the
Yeah.
point of those venue tours for you? What do you hope to get out of that?
I love doing this, and I learned this from one of my mentors, Vanessa, who's also a military spouse and photographer. Um, she has taught us through blog and SEO that when you get to a new place and you go visit, you visit the venue, you tour, you take pictures, you chat with them about everything business and not business related. And so this way, the images that I take, I can give to the website. I can give to the business if they want to use it for their website. And then I take the images, I edit, and I blog it. And I say my top 5 favorite venues in Monterey. And this way, I can put it on my website. And for brides who inquire, they'll be like, "Oh, her top 5 venues. One of them's my venue." It's so cool that she's seen the venue before and that she toured it. Plus, it's really important for me to know that if I can actually edit in my style at that venue as well. So I like to take the tour to do all of those things, basically all above.
Has that ever not happened where you've gotten to a venue and realized, oh, this does not work for my style?
Yeah. So there was actually a venue here in Virginia where there were no pictures on the website, which I thought, ooh, I could go there, take the pictures, and have them put it on their website. And then I walked in and I was like, there are no windows.
Oh,
And
no.
it was just like a gym. It was basically a gym.
Oh.
And I walked in and I didn't leave. I stayed. I talked with them for a little bit. I took the pictures. I gave them the venue, and I walked out and I was like, I am never stepping foot in this venue ever again in my life, because I don't want to be like, yeah, I'll totally shoot your wedding there, but then have my photos suck. So,
Right.
because there's no windows.
And it's hard to deliver a bright and airy style when there's no brightness or airiness of the sun. Yeah.
And I learned it the hard way because by the grace of God, I somehow ended up booking a wedding there. I don't want to talk about it, but what I do remember was explaining to the couple, because they didn't originally have their wedding there. And then they changed it to that venue after they had hired me. And I'm like, well, I think if anything, I take it for, a blessing, because it was that wedding that I actually really learned how to use off-camera flash. So I learned how to be a better photographer because of it.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome that you were able to, learn and grow from that. That exact situation happened to me once as well, where a couple, they were having an outdoor wedding. They had a big family property, and they were going to have their wedding outdoors in the backyard. Everybody was going to be outside. It was going to be great. Well, the month before, there was this horrible rainstorm, and their entire property was flooded. It's farmland.
Ooh.
Flooded.
Yeah.
So the week before the wedding, they emailed me and said, actually, we've changed the location. Obviously, this is why. So we'll see you on the wedding day. And I was like, okay, great. I checked it out. It's a local church. And I thought, this will work. I looked at the pictures and, this will be fine. Unfortunately, what I didn't know is that those pictures were from several years ago. That church had, I don't know, closed down or something. And then another company came in and bought just a portion of the church. But the portion that they bought was the basement of the church. So inside, I mean, it's obviously underground, and there were windows, luckily, but they were the 6-inch tall by 4-foot long windows. That was the only part above ground. And I walked in, and I it was the same thing. That was got to make this work, It's our job as a wedding photographer to, no matter where you are, still deliver something to your client that they will be happy to look at and share. And obviously, being able to use off-camera flash for you as well as me was our saving grace here. But sometimes these things happen, and I love that you were able to take a lesson away from this unfortunate event, for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
So sometimes I like to ask my guests, if you had to start all over again, what's something that you would do to get to where you are today, but faster? But I think for you, I have to rephrase this question, because this is what you're doing several times, right? So knowing that you'll be picking up and moving again in 18 months after you get to California, what is something that you will do to get to where you are today, but faster?
I think if I had to start over knowing that I was going to constantly move, I would have kept my full-time job longer to save up the money and then literally invest in every single possible thing and learn it all at once. And for some people that might be overwhelming, learning different courses, hiring SEO and everything in between. But for me personally, I'm the type of person where I want to learn it all, have it done in notes. So then that way I could spend the next X amount of time just implementing everything and get in there. I don't want to say as quick as possible, but efficiently as possible. Because I think for me personally, from experience, taking Amy and Jordan's shooting and editing course, and then just like waiting to invest in other things later, I really wanted to learn, like take all their courses at once, because I knew right away that I didn't have a whole lot of time to implement all of that because of the move. So it's an unfortunate trait that I like to rush things. And I know this is my mentor, Candace. She would yell at me when she tells me this, when she hears me say it. But that's honestly my mindset at the moment, was learning and investing in everything at one time and then watching everything and then implementing it to make the moves go by smoother.
That is a great way to end this right there. I don't know how to give people any more information than that. You've been a real open book. As as you said earlier, you're like, I'm an open book. You're going to find that out. And sure enough, I did for sure. You were happy to answer every question that I had. So I have to say, obviously, thank you so much for coming on and sharing everything that you did. But before I let you go, can you let listeners know where they can find you online and follow you along?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm always happy to help any photographer out there who wants to learn how to do SEO and blogging. I have the resources and the people who have helped me. So I'm on Instagram, because who isn't? And you'll find me at Dana Arnold Photography. Just, fair warning, my Instagram can sometimes be rated R. So if you're more filtered, then we might not get along. But you can find me on Pinterest, the same thing, Dana Arnold Photography. And it pretty much goes for Facebook and website as well, Dana Arnold Photography.
Perfect. Well, Dana, again, thank you so much for coming on and sharing everything that you did. And I look forward to keeping up with you and your move and your success here in the future. So again, thank you.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
That was so much fun. I gotta say, my biggest takeaway was just, I think, how confident Dana is in making things happen. If she needed help, then she made it happen. If she didn't know something, then she made it happen. If she didn't do anything, if she didn't make it happen, well, then nothing would happen for her. And she probably would not become a photographer because of the time constraints that she has. Understanding that she needs help and seeking the help that it is that she needs to help her to get to where she wants to go is a trait that, not many will take on or grab by the reins, I suppose, in the way that she has. So I hope that after listening to this interview, you got that feeling of like, man, this is actually figure outable. Like, I don't have to do everything here. I can get a little help. And that it lit a fire under your butt to go. It sure did for me. Anyway, I want to hear your biggest takeaway in the Beginner Photography Podcast Facebook group. Do you think you could do it? Do you think that you could start over every 18 months? I'll be honest, I do not think that I could. I definitely wouldn't want to, but I don't think that I could. That would be, the challenge just seems so huge, but obviously, Dana's doing it here, so proof that it can happen. So with that, we are done for this week. Until next week, I want you to make do. I want you to make more. I want you to do more, and I want you to make do with the gear that you got. Stay safe.
Thank you for listening to the Beginner Photography Podcast. If you enjoy the show, consider leaving a review in iTunes. Keep shooting, and we'll see you next week.